This tutorial series is brought to you by Bruce Books. Look at that handsome devil right there by that tree. This is my website, of course, for the stuff that I make. I also have some features going on for the month of October. So from 11th through 20th, we have this sales promo going on for not just my stuff, but actually a bunch of folks. So if you hit this link here, you'll get access to a bunch of books and stuff, including mine. Mine's there, but there are others. There's also another Guardians. Look, this is my Guardians. This is his Guardians. Read which one and tell me which one's better. We are in video 2 of this tutorial series, which is a good sign. That means my stuff hasn't crashed yet. We'll cross our fingers. Anyway, so this is where we were. We created our buttons. Let's go ahead and close that. And in this video, we're going to set up our player. We're going to make sure that we have something to play with and basic movements and such. So let's go ahead and open up our player folder. And we have our pawn here that we created in the last video. Let's go ahead and open him up. And, oh, if you end up with this scenario where you open the blueprint and you just end up with a page of stuff, but you don't see anything, up at the top here where it says class defaults, look for where it says open full blueprint. If your blueprint open normally, that's cool, but sometimes it bugs out and does this, so we're just going to hit open blueprint. And then I'm going to maximize. And there we go. Also, if you guys like these tutorial series and you'd like me to do this as a more regular thing, I teach throughout the year, and it does take up quite a bit of my time, so I don't have as much to dedicate toward the channel. But I noticed that it's picking up a little bit, and if more people like the content, of course, like, subscribe, and the more people who are kind of involved in this, the more I'm going to focus on doing the channel. So anyway, moving forward. So once we're in our blueprint, we're going to be in, let's go to the viewport here. I'm currently in the event graph, but I'm going to go to the viewport. We need an object. So I'm going to go up to add component. That's to the left here. And you can kind of pick whatever object you want. You can be a sphere or a cube or, you know, whatever. There's also some stuff you scroll down under basic shapes. You have cylinders and cones and stuff. Whatever you want your character to be. Hopefully Reddit didn't say anything terrible today. For this example, I'm going to pick a cube. There it is. With my cube, I need a few things. I need a camera, and I need a spring arm. Before that, though, you can see that our cube is not our root. Right here we have a default scene root. And it's just easier for us if our cube is our root. So I'm going to move my cube up, and you see a little checkbox there. I'm going to go ahead and drop that. My root disappears, but my cube is now the root. So that means the cube is the center thing in my world. I'm going to add a component to my cube. This is going to be a spring arm. So spring arm. The spring arm is used for controlling the camera so that you know, it rotates with the character, or if you hit like a wall, it'll readjust itself. So they're just pretty handy. You don't need one, but they come in handy. And actually, if you want to have access to your control rotations, you need a spring arm for that. So that's another reason to have it. On my spring arm, I'm going to add a camera. So make sure your spring arm is selected, and then add component. We'll type in camera. And there's my camera. You can see that there's a hierarchy. So this is the parent. This is a child of the cube, and the camera is a child of my spring arm. Now, when we're using a spring arm for our camera, we don't want to move the camera. That'll make things buggy. So we're going to use the spring arm instead. To get some more distance off of my cube, I'm going to select the spring arm, come over to the right, and I'm going to look for target arm length. That'll allow me to lengthen or shorten the boom on here. I think I'll do like 450. And I do want my camera to be pitched up a little bit. That way I can see over my cube. To do that, I'm going to press, you can hit spacebar. That'll toggle. You can hit the E key. That'll also bring this up. Or you can select the rotation tool right here. You do have to click in this window, so the easiest way is to click and drag, and then things will start working for you. So once I hit that, I'm just going to bring this up just a tad so I can see ahead. And that should be good enough. Go ahead and hit compile. And if I minimize and I hit play, I should appear with my cube. I can't move yet, but I do appear there, which is cool. Go back into my player. So now let's start setting up some code. In the event graph, we have some stuff. We got some presets. Let's get rid of all this for now, except for the begin play. We're going to use that. So for begin play, we're going to set physics. So I'm going to drag off my execution wire. So from this event here, there's a little arrow. This is the execution wire. And I'm going to do set simulate physics. And that should go to my cube. And I'll just move this. When these two things pop into the world, they're going to be together. And you'll try moving it and you'll end up moving them both. Just click off and then move it. We want to make sure we hit simulate. So there's that. So now if I compile and then I play, my cube should fall to the ground. Gravity works. That's awesome. If you don't want gravity to work, but you do want physics to be on, you can, of course, enable gravity. Gravity. Set enable gravity for cube. Again, they pop in together. And you can have this toggled as false, and then the cube won't fall, but it will still respond to other physical things. So if it gets bumped or whatever, it will just float and kind of meander, which is cool. So just one of those things you could do. This one I'm not worried about. I'm going to go ahead and delete that for now. And I want to set up the buttons that we had in the last video. So go ahead. I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to press the C key. Go ahead and wrap this and just call this set physics in case I want it later. And then under this, somewhere I'll click. I'll go ahead and press the C key again. And this one's going to be movement. Keep these nice and organized. Expand that out. And this one's going to be used for our movement. I'm going to go ahead and right click. And this is going to look for the event move forward. We set these up in the last video. So if you don't see these, make sure you go to the previous video and set them up first. And this one's going to be that. Make sure we grab the event. It's this little red guy here. And this is an axis event, so it has an axis value. From that, I'm going to add physics because we're using the physics engine. So, or sorry, we're using the physics engine, so I need to add force. Add force. You could also add a local offset, and that does allow you to move without using force. Just in case you wanted to make like a flying game that does not have physics. I'm going to click the accelerate change button. And then here for my force value, I really want to get that from my axis value, but you can see these are not compatible types here. This is a vector. You can see if I hover over it, it says force vector. If I hover over this one, this is an axis value float. But a vector is comprised of 3 floats. So if I right click on here and then go to split struct pen, it's going to expose those, and I have my 3 floating point values. So force X, Y, and Z. Z is our up and down, X is our forward and back, and Y is our left and right. So I could just plug this directly in, but if I do that, it's just not enough force. So I need to multiply my axis value by a value that I want. So pull this off. I'm going to do the multiplication symbol, so an asterisk. And that'll bring up a list of possibilities, and I'm going to come down to float times float. So float asterisk float. So now I can plug this into my force value, and I can give this my speed value, so however fast I want to go. So I'll do, I don't know, 1,000. That should be fast enough. I'll compile, hit play, and if I push, I can, of course, roll forward, which is kind of cool. Ooh, that's dizzying. My camera kind of rolls with it, right? We don't want that. But I can move. So I'm going to go ahead and hit escape. And we'll fix two of those problems. The first one is the camera, because I don't want to be dizzy. So I'm going to go ahead and select my spring arm over here to the left. Come over to the right, where our details panel, and I'm going to scroll down to camera settings. Remember, we are in our spring arm, not the camera. And I'm going to uncheck the inherit pitch, yaw, and roll. So if I uncheck these, we will no longer roll with our object, because that would just be painful. Yay! Cool. So now I'm going to go ahead and add in the next direction. So I'm going to just drag this down. My next axis is going to be move right. So move right, make sure we get the axis event. And this is exactly the same. So I'm going to drag it off, add force. But since I already have what I need over here, I'm going to go ahead and select this. All I did is drag a box and select it. And I'm going to press Control W. That's going to duplicate this off. You know, work smarter, not harder. Of course, make sure our accelerate change is checked. It should be because we copied it, right? And then I'm going to drag this in. Plug this up to my axis value. Except I don't want to be on my X value this time. X is forward and backward. I want to go left and right. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on that. I'm going to go ahead and break link. I'm going to reattach this link to the Y value. Compile it. So now I should be able to move forward, backward, left, and right. So forward, and then left and right. That's good enough. You can always adjust the force if you like. And then lastly, I want to add in our jump feature. So down here, I'm going to make a new spot, press the C key, call this jump. And the jump is going to be very similar. I'm going to give it its own little bubble though. That way we can do some separate things to it. I'm going to go ahead and look for my jump event. This one's an action event. When I drop that in, you'll see we have a different type of bubble. Instead of having this green axis value, we have pressed and released. So what we're going to do here is we're going to choose at what instance do we want to jump? When we press the bar or when we let go of the space bar? One or the other. Typically it's when we press, so I'll hit press. And I will add force against it. Add force to my cube. So here's my force bubble. Grab my cube reference. And since I don't have an axis value to plug in, because I don't have one here, I'm just going to go ahead and type it in. So right down here, I'm going to type in, I don't know, we'll do 30,000. You might think, well, that's a big number, but it is a lot of force. Our cube's actually pretty heavy. So I'm going to hit accelerate change, make sure I have that, and then we'll test it. So what the big difference is between an axis and an action is the axis value is driving from this number here that we set, whereas on our action, when we push the button, it's going to do this and only do it one time. Whereas if we press this, it's going to do this forever until we let go. So that's what the differences are. And if I hit play, click into my world, hit spacebar, and now I can jump a little bit. Yeah. Need a bit more of a force value to jump, but it's okay. Whee. So now we have the ability to move around and jump. I'm going to go ahead and save it here. Try to keep the videos short. So File, Save All. And I will see you guys in the next video.